Alright, hello everybody, this is Evan with Tabletop Gaming Guild. So today I'm bringing you a review of a product, not so much a game this time. So today I'm going to be reviewing these speed paints by Army Painter. Now, once I got these into my possession, I was trying to figure out how can I actually review these guys in a proper way. Talking about it doesn't really show much. I could show some after that, but I figured I'll actually come down and I'll throw some paint on a miniature, and then we can kind of see it as it goes, and then we can get some better thoughts about them. So I got the mega set from Army Painter here. Got it, and come in the dropper bottles here. Also comes with one of their brushes. So we're going to be doing everything with the monster brush that comes in here, and we're going to use, I got 5 colors out, and the miniature that we're going to be painting is this guy right here. So this is a GW sculpt here, and I just pulled up the GW picture, so I'm going to kind of try and follow along with that right there. I have that off to the side here to kind of keep me going, but I'm going to kind of follow that for the most part, but it's not going to be 100%. But we're going to do this guy up, and we're going to see, what we actually really think about the speed paints here. Now, I've done a couple miniatures already, and kind of messed around with it to kind of get an idea before I did the videos here. And I say so far I really like it, but we're going to talk about a couple different things as we go along here. So first thing I'm going to talk about, so the speed paints here, one thing I've noticed is they, especially coming fresh out of the box, they need quite a bit of shaking. So even before I started this video up, I actually sat there and I shook all 5 of these bottles quite a bit. I'm going to hold this up to the microphone a little bit so you can hear. So one nice thing that RA Painter does is they actually put mixing balls in there. I don't know if you can see that. Throw 2 balls right into that, so it helps mix up the paints when you're going along with it here. So let me give this a couple more shakes here, and then we're going to go in painting through this guy here. So this GW sculpt here, so you can see I primed it in a gray, and then I did a quick zenithal highlight there to kind of highlight some of the different areas and left some of the shadows into different areas too here. So let me get my picture back up here. So with the picture there, you can see, quite a bit of it is white here. So we're going to grab this holy white here. So one nice thing with the speed painters here, similar to the Citadel Contrast, what's nice is it is an all-in-one paint. So what they mean by all-in-one paint is it is going to do your base coat, it is going to do your highlights, and it's also going to do your shadows all in one. So you got my little palette off to the side here. Let me drop some in there. Now they say when you put this out, definitely get the first couple drops into a paper towel or something like that, because there's a lot of the flow medium that sits on the top even after you mix it, and you don't want that to just kind of dilute down what you have unless you really want it. So this is what I dropped in there, and as you can see, it's actually really thin, but that's by design because you want it to flow into a lot of the recesses here. Now, a lot of times with the miniature paints, you want to go kind of thin with this. You want to actually go a little thicker with this, because it likes to take itself and then go and pull down into the recesses. Now if you go too thin, there's not going to be enough that's going to go down into the recesses. So I'm just going to lay this on here kind of thick so it has a little bit to pull down into. And you can see as I go across this section that has like some of the white in there, how it covers. Now one thing that I noticed as I was doing this, excuse me. One thing I've noticed when I was doing this was in the last guys that I painted was actually a cameraman and reporter for some modern stuff that I've been working on, and on the they're like war correspondence. That's what I was painting, and there was a lot of flat surface that I was painting on. Citadel's contrast does not like flat surfaces. It likes this kind of area, or like the 6-pack area right there, where it's got a lot of that contour and a lot of that shaping to pull into. When you get into flat areas like this, really like coming across this leg right here, it's a kind of big, it's got this roll right there, but overall that's a big large flat area. Contrast doesn't like that because it doesn't have anywhere to go, so it sits. And when it sits like that, when it dries, it has a tendency to do what's called coffee staining. And it doesn't look the best. Now, sometimes you can get away with some coffee staining if you're using it for like like leather or something, or like wood. You can get away with those kind of looks. But when you're trying to do a fleshier tone, kind of like this, it doesn't really work too well. Now, one thing too is I'm painting it and you're looking at it and you go, well, Evan, that doesn't look too white. This stuff goes on darker than what it dries on, and you'll see that it will actually dry fairly quickly. And by quickly, I mean like 20 minutes or so. It'll be pretty well dry. I'm just kind of going along here and just painting the different sections. A lot of different painters, if you watch painting videos, they're very deliberate, like starting in one area and kind of going along. I don't really do that because I think my ADD doesn't let me focus on one area for too long before it goes, ooh, shiny over there. You must pay attention to that. But see, if you look over here, I painted into this section. Oh, I'm off the camera. I painted into this section here. It's already whitening up. Apologize if some of that was off camera there. First time I've done a little painting video. So learning spots on where can a camera work. It's gonna be a ordeal, but also through some magic of editing, we can make it look good. Now, you can see some bone and whatnot up and through here. I'm not too concerned about splashing over onto that. And also, it's a little muscly through there too. I'm not worried about that either, because we're going with a much darker color over it, so it'll cover it up pretty well. Now, there are some talks about how this stuff likes to reactivate when another color goes on top of it, and I have seen videos that say, yep, that is absolutely true. And I have seen other videos that say, nope, did not have that problem. Army Painter itself said, it can happen, and what you should do is just to seal it in between coats. Well, one, I'm not sealing in between coats. Too much extra effort. I'm just going to get this face into that. Like I said, I'm not too worried about the covering, because even if it activates and reactivates over, I'm going with a much darker color on top of that, so it should, in theory then, not bleed too much on top of it. And since this is like a gray-white, even any kind of bleeding that is going to come through, all it's going to do is take like a sharp edge and kind of mute it down a little bit. So I'm just going to see what happens, and if it gets too light from what I want, I can always go a shade darker on top of it. But flow-wise, this is flowing fantastically. It's covering really, really well. This is straight out of the bottle. I did not do any like additional flow aids or anything like that. This is straight out here. I think I like to do, let me clean up my brush a little bit. Been painting for a little bit and haven't cleaned it. Now, I will be the first to admit, too, as I go along here, I am not the best painter in the world. I'm not terrible either, just kind of in the middle. I do this for fun. I don't do this to, commission. If I did that for commission, I probably would go insane. It's because I barely have time to paint the guys I have, let alone trying to find time to paint somebody else's. So I give credit to a bunch of guys out there that I know that commission paint. I'm friends with quite a few different guys. Credit to you guys for doing it. So, see, as I go along onto that wing there, I'm not worried about it going, because I'm going to go and do like a really dark red on top of it. So I'll let it dry and see what happens. So you can see some of the spots here along up here that I've gotten, it's starting to lighten up some. So get the but I'm liking what this is doing here, so we'll work. You guys can go ahead and comment about, oh, you should have painted it this way or that way. I could have done this, 500 different ways, but like I said, this is just for me to paint, and just getting this on here. I like to see what this kind of does. I really like this paint so far. Like I said, I did a couple guys on there, but I really want to see overall what we're going to do. Okay, so I didn't really paint that there because I'm going to get that into some dark grays or almost blacks into this section right here. I can get some bone color into that. And like I said, there's some, I got a little excess. I'm going to kind of whisk away a little bit here. I'm going to get some pinkish, like dark purpley muscle colors into that. We're going to get this painted into like a dark red for the wings. I got a couple other colors over here too, so it's drying up here. Still kind of gray, but you can see some of the white kind of poking through to it here. So looking good, and I got to get some on this foot over here. One thing I've understood too, watching a couple of videos about this, people using it, and one thing a lot of people have said is you can't treat this paint the same as you would do a contrast paint. And you can't use it the same as you would do like a regular Reaper paint or anything like that. It's just kind of its own entity. And I'm seeing that. You can see some of the drying spots up through here. You can see some of the white with some of the gray pools into it. It's looking pretty good. I'm really liking that so far. I like going with this gray-white. Looking good here, so I'm going to go and start onto the wings here next. So these wing ribs here, I'm probably going to go do with a really dark, like dark black or gray into them. I was thinking about doing it the same color, this gray-white, but I decided against it. I think I'm going to go with the dark. So yeah, I'm going to start onto these wings here next. I was going to give this rest of a couple of these areas a chance to dry up here. Clean my brush up. Shaky, shaky, shaky. All right. So I'm going to start on this wing because it's still drying a little bit more over there. So we're going to start on this wing here. We'll start on this side. We'll see. We're going to get a good idea too because of this. You can see some of the texture that's on this. We're going to see how that kind of comes across here. So just kind of, I really like this, the idea of this like blood red wing. I think it's going to look pretty BA when it's done. A real good contrast in between the gray skin. I think it's going to really pop out too once we get those little rib sections in between the wings. Once we get those into a nice gray. Now normally I'd switch to a wider flat brush, but I'm just, like I said, I'm just going to do everything with the not the GW. This is the Army Painter brush that comes with the set. You know, it's a thicker brush, not great for like smaller details, but some of the smaller details you don't have to really worry about when you're doing a contrast style paint like this, or you know, well, this is a contrast paint, this is the speed paint, but the same vein of things. Because it's going to flow into those, so you don't have to worry. Like, you don't have to try and follow along, like getting along here, because it's going to flow right into that. So it's moving right along. Get that to get a couple spots that may have missed. There's still a lot of paint over there that I can pull from to get this, so I'm just gonna, oops, I clipped an area there. That's my fault, but mistakes can be fixed. Get along there, a couple of these spots like that. Let's go down to the end, and I'll see what I want to cover up with that. That gray black here. A couple spots over here. And then along this edge here, a little dab here. I don't know. I think it looks pretty cool. Let's flip it over and we'll do some of the inside here. again, I'm going to apologize as I'm painting this if a couple times if the miniatures I'm painting gets off screen while I'm painting. This is the first time I've ever done like a painting video, you know. And this is not my normal painting section area, so I'm kind of sitting a little differently than I would normally sit to paint, so that's a challenge in itself. Another thing too is like my focus point is way off of where I normally would be. I'm normally a lot closer to the miniatures I'm painting it. And I've got to take care of paying attention to this. There's a little camera coming down on top of it. So usually when I'm painting, I don't have that camera, obviously, since I don't do these videos. But with the camera here, now I got, instead of just worrying about my focal point, I also got to worry about the focal point of the camera, so you can actually see what the heck I'm doing. Now I will say, color-wise, you know, the colors are coming out really nicely from different ones that I've used. I haven't found a color I haven't liked yet, but I haven't worked my way through the entire set to kind of see what I have all across the board. I'm sure there'll be a color in there I'm going to be like very meh about, but the colors do look great, and there's a couple of them in there that I know I can use for some historical stuff. Oh crap, I got that on. Made a boo-boo right there. What was I saying? There'll be some uses for some of these colors and some historical stuff, which is what I paint a lot of. It's because I play a lot of historical miniatures, and I can see some really good applications for some of these colors and some historical aspects. And with the speed paint, it's actually going to be really nice because once I get a base prime down, I think I might be able to get miniatures in relatively quickly, because since this is an all-in-one paint, I'm not going to have to spend the time in between to do additional things to the miniatures, such as individual highlighting, shading. I saw somebody post on a Discord channel that I'm on that they did a guy from beginning to end timed in 3 minutes, which in only 3 minutes would be fantastic. Now obviously this is not just a normal guy, he's quite large and kind of an undertaking to do for a video, but I don't actually really mind doing this here. Now one thing I'm probably going to do is I'm going to break this up in between a couple, maybe 1 or 2 paint sessions itself. Yep. Never a paint job until you actually get some on you. Never fails for me. This guy's coming along, I think, very menacing looking, flying in, you know, with the blood red wings in here. I think he's going to look pretty cool. That little wing flap. There's one on this side too. A little tiny bit of paint on that. So this holy white here, you can see as it dried up a lot more. You can see some of that white with the gray into it. I think I'm probably going to go over it again, maybe with another lighter white. I believe there's one in this set. I'll have to look. So I think I want him a little paler skin. I'll have to look and see if there's one in there. If there's not, I'll have to find a pale white. I'm sure I have one somewhere that I can just throw on top if need be. Not ideal because I wanted to do everything with the speed paints, but it is what it is. Again, I apologize for not being one of those people that focuses on one solid area and gets that done. I kind of skip around, but that's just how I do it. By all means, paint how you want to paint. If it brings you joy doing it that way, then keep doing it that way. Now, if you've stumbled across this video, you're not the greatest painter in the world. Don't worry, like I said, neither am I. But much like what I said, if it brings you joy doing it, that's all that matters. Slap some paint on it if you want to. You don't have to. You can play with your miniatures completely unpainted. Us here on the channel, we play so many board games. There's so many pieces that we have unpainted, and even myself, I'm primarily a miniature gamer. I have many a board game that I have not painted yet because I have so many miniature games that I have not painted yet. My pile, as we call it, the pile of shame, is quite extensive. Okay, so this is dried up pretty well, and if you look at that, like you can see the white coming into the darker color, and that's like over here with the zenithal highlighting here. I do mine. I don't use a airbrush. I use rattle cans. But you can see that I had a little extra excess pulling of the paint in there, which is not ideal. But yeah, I'm not going for competition level. So you can kind of see that into this, but it's not bad. And I kind of like how, it kind of gives it a different look with it. I'm not upset with that, really. So this time I'm going to go through. I'm actually going to try. Remember that I painted this over here. And be conscientious. Did I say that right? Conscientious. I think that's better. Of that as I slap some paint in, and I actually make mistakes like I did in the other couple other spots. But oh well, we'll fix those, no problem. Yeah, I got a little bleed in that, but it's alright. Like I said, I'm probably going to end up covering most of that up. Not because it looks bad, but I kind of wanted it lighter white than what it came out to be. That's probably because the body was mostly gray from my gray primer. Now remember, when you're using these products, much like when you're using regular acrylic or if you're using contrast. The color of your base coat's really going to matter. What you got, the darker the color of your base coat, the darker the shade is going to be when it comes out, obviously. So lighter shades, you want, the lighter colors of primer onto that, white being the lightest of them. And if you want to get a kind of a good realistic look, I do recommend zenithal shading onto your miniature before you're painting. Now, if you're doing smaller scale stuff, that's not going to really matter too much, at least in my opinion. But, stuff like this where it's larger. I mean, this is a 28 millimeter. Well, since it's GW, so it's probably closer to 32 in scale. Because they're really bad with size creep. Something like this size, zenithal definitely helps you pick out some of the shadows and recesses better, and it can help the paint stay lighter on the top areas and darker in the others when it doesn't get in that, unless you're like me and it kind of glopped out of the spray can more than you expected it to. But that was due to, let's call it user error on that one. Mostly because another drop or two of my palette here. It was user error just because when I primed these guys, it was probably February, Western Pennsylvania. It was cold outside. So when you use rattle cans to prime stuff, or really anything, if you lacquer them with your rattle cans, you can't use that stuff when it's too cold outside because it does not work. You also got to watch the humidity. If it's too humid, it's going to frost it. If the humidity is too low, you have a similar problem. So you kind of have to get a good balance. Well, I can't just prime stuff, which around here would be 2 months out of the year. Won't work. So what I do is, in my basement I got a nice utility room that I can put a mask on. It's not, and after everybody's left for the day, or right as we're leaving for the day, I can get all these guys lined up, give everybody a quick shot of whatever paint they need out of the can, and then I can leave them in the utility room. And by the time somebody gets back home, all that really bad smell has dissipated. And my basement has heat in it, so it is almost always in the ideal temperature area. And it also has a dehumidifier down in there, so I can constantly check what the humidity is and tailor it to what I need it to be. And that leads to me being able to spray paint all year round. Now, I specifically remember the morning that I did these guys, I was running late, so I had not shaken the can as well as I should have. Wasn't paying attention as well as I should have. And when I came across, well, actually it was on the back here, when I came across, I watched it kind of pool and I was like, oh no. But at that point I was pot committed. I had to get to where I was going. I was like, you know what? It ain't gonna be perfect. But it's gonna be perfect enough for me. Now this is a change too for me, because I have been painting humans for a while now, and it's about time I did something that was something else. So, quick look here on the back, and I'm sure there's a couple spots I missed in there. We'll be okay. Because even though this is going to be, all-in-one wash, highlight, base coat all-in-one, there's probably a couple spots that I'm going to hit with a shade anyways. So a couple of these little tiny speckle spots, if I miss, not going to be a big deal. Some of them too, I can just hit with a little bit more paint, super quick. No biggie. Remember, I'm not a competition painter, not a commission painter. This is for me. So, looking good, looking good. Quite happy with the results so far. Alright. So we're going to give him a second here. I'm going to grab Grey Lord Grey here. Grave Lord Grey, sorry. So I'm going to come along and I'm going to do some of the bottoms here. He's got some furry bits right through there. I'm going to hit those too with this. Shaky, shaky, shaky. So we're going to start here. Get this in the, I guess we're going to say the crotchal region. I don't know, can I say crotchal region on the channel? I'm not sure. So when this video goes live, we're going to see if I can say crotchal region. Get the back here. Get this right here. So I'm liking that going on there. Just like that. Just like that. And then one thing I saw with the base picture too is they did this bottom leg area in a darker color. I think I'm going to follow suit with that. Kind of look cool. So we're going to make this a little darker down here. Now I'm not worried about getting anything on the base. I'm going to do basing one day. You can see a nice line there where I can kind of so if you are wondering, what, Evan, are you using these guys for? So I'm not a Warhammer guy. I don't play Warhammer. I don't play Age of Sigmar, any of those. I've never been into them. Yeah, have I played them before? I played a couple different ones, yes. I have a real good friend that plays a lot of Age of Sigmar, and we're probably going to get a couple videos of playing that at some point through the channel here, because he's got a nice collection of stuff, and Warhammer stuff looks really cool, painted up, and his collection's really, really nice. But I've just never, it's not been my thing, really. But some of these sculpts and some of these guys, like this guy, really cool. I really like him a lot. Like, I got, this one that comes into that. Oh, and the other one that's over here too. The sculpt is just really cool. I really like it. And I've been kicking around an idea of a Resident Evil kind of game. And these guys just kind of fit into like an Umbrella Corp monstrosity. I can see it. So, we're going to make it happen. I'm going to kind of do this little thing up here on top of his head. We're going to make that dark too. Because we can. So you can see that dark. It's really pulling in here. I really like how that's going. It's looking good. I like it. I like it a lot. I think I'm going to drop a little bit more right in here. Yeah. Looking good. Looking good. Let's get some of this out of here. All the excess pulling in here. Just soak it up with the brush a little bit. Okay. Just moving along, moving along. So then that white gray too, for that holy white that I used, once this has kind of moved along further, that might be something that I might keep it that way. The way it's looking right now, how it ends up later might be different. So there's still some holy white in here that hasn't dried, so I'm going to come in here and grab a little bit. I'm just going to kind of throw it over here. We're going to see too. Does it reactivate? Does it not reactivate? Yeah, I put it on top. It's not showing through. So I don't know. Like I said, I've seen a couple of videos that they said, yes it does. And a couple other ones that said, no it doesn't. These spots that I'm covering, definitely my fault because I wasn't paying attention close enough as I was going. But like Bob Ross says, just happy little accidents. So we're getting just a couple of these. So I'm not seeing a reactivation. I'm not seeing that red shine through, which with this grayish white, you would think it would want to kind of shine through. Not seeing it do it. So, a verdict is still out on that. Yeah, the big thing too with this is this is just a tool that you're going to use in your painting belt. It's not going to be the be all end all. I'm going to I'm using the speed paints. I'm going to get rid of every other paint that I have. I'm just going to solely use this. It's just another tool. Will I go further into this miniature with some other paints? Absolutely will. But will it cut down a lot of the time that I would normally have to put into it? Absolutely will too. So we're coming along with that. So, we got a couple in like 3 different spots here. Now, as I'm recording this, it is later in the evening, so I'm not going to go too much further than with it tonight here. But I think I got enough on there to kind of give a general review. Like I said, it's not not a perfect paint job, but I just wanted to kind of see it flow in a couple different spots, especially some places that have some texture into it, like here. You can see it dries pretty quick. I mean, I'm already dry. I'm not pulling paint at all onto that. Now, one thing I'm curious to, so I take a wet brush. Let's drop it like that, and then so I got a little bit of paint. It kind of reactivated a little bit, but not a whole lot. So. And that's only with 10-15 minutes of dry time with it. Some of your normal acrylics won't do that. It all depends on your brand manufacturer. But do I like this stuff? I think I do. It's not going to replace a lot of the other paints over there. I still have a lot of, I use a lot of Reaper paints. I enjoy Reaper paints. They flow really well. Their paint colors are the pop colors are really good. The muted colors are really good. It's one brand that I've always enjoyed a lot. But I also do have a lot of Citadel contrast. I use a lot of Citadel washes, but I also do Army Painter washes too. I like them a lot. So I have a mix of stuff, and I even have some cheap craft paints. Like one of my favorite cheap craft paints is just the $1 jar of matte black. I love the matte black that comes into, in that. It works really good. One of my favorite ones. Throw it in there, a couple drops of water, you're good to go. I like it. But talking about these guys, this paint, I like it. It's another tool to put into here, into my, repertoire. I think, I wouldn't replace, like I said, everything I have, but it's going to replace a couple things. And a couple things that I do, and I really enjoy that here. Let me go grab that camera crew that I did earlier. They're not done yet, but they're on their way. I did the camouflage green in there, and then I went with the bright blue to kind of show off, that they are, press. I'm probably going to get a really fine marker to write press on the front and back of this one here to kind of break up that flat. But this is what I was talking about. This flat area here, contrast paints don't like that at all. And as you can see with this one, I got a little tiny bit of coffee staining right there, but it's not bad. Overall, time I put into these two guys was probably about 1.5 minutes to get them to here. And all I really have left to do is this camera, his glasses, and their boots, and they're not bad off. I think I spent more time opening the paints than anything. I really like them. Actually, so since I have some, this Grey Lord Grey over here, I'm actually going to throw, why not? We'll do this camera real quick. Because we can. It's utter chaos in here. Why not? For the super curious of those, and half this audio I don't think is even going to make it into the video because I'm rambling and just talking. And it's up to James to decide on what's staying, what's going. But, you know, I want to say, I actually forgot what I was talking about there. But yeah, well, let's get this here. Oh yeah, I was saying, for those that are super curious, it is 10:40 in the evening. Those that are curious about my life, I am usually up every day around 5 in the morning. So you see how quick and easy that was, and I think that looks pretty good for a camera. Now, you got some sunglasses on there. I'm not going to worry about trying to get them metallic or anything like that. We're just going to try and keep it on camera here. Just going to do like that, and like this. Like that. A little bit like that to kind of get that edge. Okay. Not a bad looking press guy. But there we go. So super basic kind of painting here with some of the Army Painter speed paint set. Would I recommend them? So if you were just starting off painting, I would not recommend this as a jumping off point. You really need to understand some of the basics with the painting. Start with a starter set. Reaper has a really good one with I'll Learn to Paint, and it's got some nice step-by-steps. RA Painters also has a really good starter set too. It comes with, both sets are, I think, anywhere from like 8 to 12 paints, and it's going to give you a good starting point of learning to paint with the basic colors. You're going to learn that, blocking out your areas, working with shading at that point, dry brushing techniques. Once you get into that, once you kind of understand how that works, going to the next step, that's where you would want to look at this set. And that's where this set kind of fits in. When you're ready to take that next step up in your painting, you want to kind of elevate it a little bit. This is where this set, I think, really does some nice things. Some people don't like the contrast style paints or like this, and it's all in personal preference. There's a couple painters out there on the YouTube that use a lot of contrast and are going to be using a lot of these speed paints. It's all up to what you find, what you like and you don't like. It's not going to be for everybody. This is definitely a good intermediate set. I believe if you go to your local friendly gaming store, you can get the mega set here. I think it runs MSRP is $99, and I think there's a set lower that has, I think, about half the colors, and I want to say it's either $59 or $69.99. That's not a bad place to go. I have a large, extensive collection of paints, and I've been painting for quite a while. Like I said, I'm not the best painter in the world. You saw me make a couple mistakes on this. It's okay. I'm not worried about it. I'll clean this up, as I work further onto it. But I'm really happy, and then, here on Surprise at the end, I'm happy with, how these guys have dried up. They're really, really cool. I like them a lot. So yeah, RA Painter, speed paints. Are they worth it? I say they are. Don't don't use it as your starting point. Definitely that's one thing I'm gonna say over and over again with this. Do not use it as your starting point. But if you've been painting for a little bit, you kind of understand the basics of painting, and you want to expand your toolbox of painting. This is definitely a good way to go look at it. So. This is Evan with Tabletop Gaming Guild. If you want to see some more videos, like this or like something else, definitely leave some comments. Reach out to us here on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Tell us some more stuff that you want to see. And we'll see about bringing that content to you guys. You're all what makes this all possible for us. So we thank you for subscribing. And until the next time, we'll see you later.